Hey y'all, and welcome to PolitiBrawl. My name is Brian, and Karoline Leavitt completely clowns this know-nothing reporter who has no idea what Trump's tariffs are actually doing to the world economy. Let's dive in.
This is a common sense policy, and if these countries wanted to negotiate, if these countries wanted to do what's right, they've had 70 years to do it. Instead, they have been ripping off American workers, and President Trump has made it very clear that this is a policy he was going to implement. He campaigned on the idea of fair trade, on tariffs, and nearly 80 million Americans elected him to do it, and he is delivering.
You talk about the impact on everyday Americans. I wanted to ask you about that because the impact on farmers is a big concern I've heard voiced by many Republicans like Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina. I want to play for you what the senator has said and also what a local farmer in North Carolina is saying.
Anyone who says there may be a little bit of pain before we get things right need to talk about farmers who are one crop away from bankruptcy. They don't have time.
In Western North Carolina alone, Helene caused over $2.5 billion of crop losses. These tariffs are pouring salt in a wound that is just now beginning to heal.
To that farmer, the president says what?
The president is standing up for American farmers. In fact, he was joined here at the White House yesterday by many of them. We have seen China, the Chinese Communist Party, buying up, gobbling up American farmland. The president is doing what's right for these farmers, and to our fellow Americans, we encourage them to buy American. And you look at the effectiveness of the tariffs by the investments that have poured into our country thus far. Even before the president made this announcement yesterday, he has secured trillions of dollars in investments right here in the United States of America, and he has the backs of our farmers, our workers, and our in companies as well who are choosing to invest in the United States.
Well, I mean, that woman is a farmer, and that woman says that this feels like salt in a wound that is only beginning to heal. She does not seem to want these tariffs at all. I mean, the president has acknowledged that Americans could feel some pain with these tariffs, with this announcement. How much pain is the president comfortable with Americans feeling, even on a temporary basis?
Well, again, to that a wonderful American farmer, the president has your back and he wants to protect you and your family-owned farm. That is the point of these tariffs. As far as
are you going to do anything to ease the pain?
Absolutely. We're working on that every single day. The American people and the naysayers need to look at the whole of government economic approach that this administration is taking. The president has already launched a massive deregulatory agenda, which we know has saved the American taxpayer millions of dollars. He is also unleashing the might of our American energy industry, which we know is the greatest driver of inflation. It's one of the many reasons we had an inflation crisis in the previous administration. The president is unleashing American energy to bring down the cost of living in this country. We also know, again, in the president's first term, while he effectively implemented tariffs, wages went up. The median wage in America went up by $6,500. And so it is the goal of this president to have higher wages, less inflation, and tax cuts. That's the second step of the Trump economic agenda. More money back into the pockets of hardworking American. No taxes on tips, overtime, or Social Security. We're counting on Congress to get it done, and that's the next step of the Trump economic boom.
On taxes, JP Morgan just came out with an analysis in response to this tariff announcement, saying that these tariffs will be the largest tax hike on Americans since 1968, a tax hike by $660 billion a year. What is JP Morgan missing? What are world markets getting wrong? What are, when you see stock futures down, what is everyone missing, including that local farmer in North Carolina?
Well, they're missing the massive revenue that these tariffs are going to bring into the United States. Trillions and trillions of dollars in investment, which leads to more jobs in American communities, higher wages, more money in the pockets of hardworking Americans.
In the most immediate, I mean, these farmers, as Thom Tillis says, farmers are one crop away from bankruptcy. That farmer doesn't have time to wait for tariffs to work their way into the system, for the benefit of it to work its way into the system at all. this is going to mean higher prices for Americans. In the most immediate, that's why I asked the question, how much pain on a temporary basis is okay? What's the standard that the president is looking at in terms of how much pain Americans can feel on a temporary basis that he's okay with?
Again, the president is focused every single day on lowering the cost of living in this country while simultaneously implementing these very effective tariffs. Massive deregulation, an energy boom, and tax cuts are the economic formula that will mean more prosperity and the lower cost of living. And it's a proven formula. Look at President Trump's first term and the results. When he left office, inflation was 1.4%. He implemented many tariffs in his first term that did bring in billions of dollars in revenue. In fact, the previous administration knew they were so effective, that's why they left them in place. So again, the president is delivering on his promise to implement reciprocal tariffs while his administration is working hard every day to cut regulation, to reduce fraud, waste, and abuse in our federal government as well. And tax cuts are the next step of this economic agenda, which will lead to more investment, more money in our economy, more economic growth.
Y'all, this is a beautiful answer by Karoline Leavitt. And by the way, what an upgrade over the past couple of people that were tasked to talk to the media under the Biden administration. Good grief. What an awful trip. I am so glad that Karoline Leavitt is a huge upgrade over that sort of nonsense. But to make matters even better, she fully understands what's actually going on. And see, this reporter, bless her heart, she's trying her hardest. She's trying to trump up this story about not a subsistence farmer, that's an old Southern stereotype, but a Southern farmer in North Carolina who was hit hard by Hurricane Helene. Now, I'm going to be completely frank and honest with you here, and this is going to get a little bit longer than I'd like to, but if you're a farmer in North Carolina, it likely means that you're selling your wares and goods to the local community. You're not selling your wares and goods abroad. All right, you aren't harvesting rice in Arkansas. You aren't harvesting corn in Iowa. You aren't doing soybeans across the Midwest. The reality is those farmers are typically corporate farmers who work in a much larger conglomerate, and those are the people that are going to look at the tariffs and go, this is going to hit us a little bit, but the majority of American farmers who are fully independent don't have to worry about that. Okay, they have their equipment. Those tariffs are going to hit in different ways, and this reporter does not know what she's talking about. This is the rich white liberal problem of not understanding how a basic farm works. These are the kind of people that think that grocery stores are responsible for producing your food. Okay, this is a laughable problem that only works in these rich white gated communities that exist on the outskirts of town and don't actually have to deal with realities of what happens on the other side of the railroad tracks. And if you want to deal with the tariffs themselves, here's Secretary Bessent himself. My advice to every country right now is do not retaliate. Okay, sit back. Take it in. Let's see how this goes. Because if you retaliate, there will be escalation. Bessent said Wednesday in an interview on Special Report shortly after the announcement, if you don't retaliate, this is a high watermark. Essentially what this is, and what it has always been, what Trump has been talking about for the better part of a year now, is that tariffs are a double-edged sword that essentially do two things. One, they make American investment more dollarable. And two, they bring in more revenue outside of the normal means. We actually do get some of our tax money from tariffs still. It wasn't always a viable system, but let's be honest here, when the rest of the world has 16, 20, 50% tariffs. There are some cases in China and Canada even where the tariffs are over 200% on American goods. This is not free trade. Anyone who screams about free trades or fair markets does not understand what they're talking about. I want to say they're lying to you, but the reality is they just don't get it. They don't understand that the rest of the world is, for the most part, protectivist and nativist to their own nations in order to preserve their markets. As a matter of fact, the United States used to be like this in our infancy, right after our separation, our wonderful Independence Day from Great Britain, and we had higher tariffs on multiple occasions, particularly one in 1819, that ultimately spurred the American economy and protected the American system itself. That's quite literally what it was called, Henry Clay's American system. Tariffs can work if you have the right kind of president backing you. Guess what? We have someone who quite literally wrote a book called Art of the Deal. The man who has quite literally leveraged his political power the same way a businessman does for the first time, I think, in American history. I don't think we have ever fully seen this happen. We've used tariffs before, we've tried them in the past here and there, but we've never had a politician who has actually been a businessman at the negotiating table. We've had reformers like Theodore Roosevelt. We have had generals like Dwight Eisenhower and George Washington. We've even had know-nothing men of no repute whatsoever like Abraham Lincoln, who were able to take on the mantle of president and deliver. Granted, I'm not the biggest Lincoln fan, and it's not just because I'm a Southern boy, but the reality is we have a different kind of dude in office right now. And his policies were so effective that the Biden administration kept them during their tenure after 2021 when he was sworn into office, licked his ice cream cone, and then let his entire staff and his wife completely run the White House for the next 4 years, okay? That's how good these tariffs actually work. So I'm going to be in the chair of just sit back, wait, and wait. Let things play out. This is nothing to be histrionic about. The farmers are going to be able to make it one way or another. They always do. Because the American farmer, I don't want to overstate it and say they're the backbone of American society, but let's be honest. That's where we come from. That's where we get our country music. That's where we get our backbone. That's where we get our toughest people. The American farmers deserve some help. And back in during Trump's first term, they were actually behind the tariffs and were okay with it. It was a tit for tat then, but now it is now a negotiating tactic with the rest of the world saying there's a new sheriff in town. You have got to play with our policies or risk the consequences. And the American farmers are going to be okay. This is nothing but the liberal mainstream media running point on a story that they don't fully understand, all because rich white liberals don't understand what it means to be a farmer. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on PolitiBrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Until then, y'all have a good one.